Welcome to the Spiritual Awakening with Shaz podcast, where we unlock the power within and navigate the journey of your self-discovery together. I'm Shaz Sini, your spiritual mentor and life coach, here to help you tap into your inner guidance system and manifest your best life. Whether you're just beginning your spiritual journey or looking to deepen your practice, this podcast offers insights, techniques, and inspiration to elevate your consciousness and transform your reality. Get ready to shine your light and embrace your true potential. Remember, the answers are inside you. Let me be your guide on earth. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Spiritual Awakening podcast with Shaz. I'm your host, Shaz Sini. Today, we're going to delve into the topic of grief. It is one of the biggest factors of when people go through that spiritual awakening process. It is the greatest trigger, I believe, for when people start seeking out psychics and mediums to find answers, to answer questions and resolve issues that they haven't been able to resolve with before one of their loved ones have passed away. Grief in its essence is the absence of love not seen. And today we're going to talk about that and how to move through it, why it's important not to wallow in grief and not to allow it to overcome you, and how important it is for you to understand and accept that the soul lives on, and the greatest harm that we do to our loved ones who do move on is to stay stuck in grief. As I mentioned, it is the absence of love not seen, felt, or heard. So when we are crying and sad, falling into depression, we can't function and we can't move on after a loved one has passed on, we create negative energy around us, and that stops us from connecting and feeling their essence and knowing that they're nearby. But it also creates great hurt and pain to our loved ones in spirit and in the heavenly sphere, because they feel responsible for our pain, our sorrow, and our grief. And they take that on their shoulders as they never loved us enough. As I said, grief is love not seen, not felt, or not heard. So when we wallow in grief and we fall down the rabbit hole of not being able to function, giving up on life, wanting to die, wanting to be with them, wanting to quit on what we have, their responsibility from that side is, did they not love us enough? While they were here, did they not give us everything they were capable of giving us? Were we never enough for them? Were they never enough for us? And as sad as it seems, this is also some of the reasons why people end up taking their own life, is they feel that absence of love, not through grief of another person, but grief of self or grief of circumstance, of not being able to connect or feel the essence of love. But at its greatest core is a disconnect from God himself. For that love exists within us. And as our soul connects back to that heavenly sphere, the universal feature of whatever essence you want to call the great source energy, it is the disconnect of our soul in our humanness that we start to feel deep, dark moments of grief. Grief hits us in many different forms. It comes out of nowhere. But grief is an emotion about death, the loss and passing of a loved one, whether that's a human loved one or a pet or an animal loved one. They affect us. That loss is great. And yes, we are meant to go through the grieving process. But it is a process, and we're not meant to linger in it. We're not meant to stay there. And we are certainly not meant to stop living because of someone that we love passing on to spirit. For when they get there, they rejoice going back to their source energy. They rejoice to learn and discover what they accomplished in this life and to celebrate the journey that they have. And the relationship that they have with you is part of that rejoicing. And it's really hard for them to rejoice that they did a great job when you feel their loss so deeply, because the loss is the absence of love. Did they not give you enough while they were here? Trust me, we want everyone to live forever, and certainly the closest to us, our parents, our grandparents, our siblings, our partners, our children, yes, we would wish that they were here forever. But some lifetimes are not as long as others. But during that lifetime, and especially from a pet's point of view, they come here to give us and show us love in each and every moment. And it's in the interactions and lessons of life that we have with them that we experience that love, that connection, that meeting of minds and the connection of souls. And their greatest wish is that we feel it so deeply that when they pass on, we know we're going to meet them again. We know we can rejoice in that connection once more. And their humanness matters to us because they taught us something, gave us that love, that unconditional acceptance, that connection that we seek, and it was enough for us. The true depths of despair of grief is you saying what they gave us was not enough. And that's disrespectful to yourself and to them because they give us everything that they can with everything that they have while they are here. It's a pain that sometimes seems that one moment you're going to be okay and others it comes back. And that is how grief is meant to be experienced in waves. And the loss can be hard, especially on certain events and specific times that are important. But we are not meant to have it inside of us, sitting there, holding us down, blocking us from moving forward every single day after they're gone. We are meant to remember them with grace and love and excitement and happiness and joy. That is one of the hardest aspects that people have to cope with when they are moving past the first stages of grief, is they feel unworthy or disappointed or sad because they do start to experience happiness again. But that's what life's all about. We rejoice when people are born, and when people in heaven lose us from that spirit world to come down to earth, they celebrate our success because their soul is a bit more evolved than it becomes while we become down on earth and go through the humanness of this life. But within that, we don't fully celebrate the loss of them back to their source energy. It should be the same way as a birth. They have completed their soul's journey and they've done what they need to do on this earth. And we try to hold on to them and they linger and suffer through pain because we don't want to let go. And they don't want to let go for us because their fear for us is that the love that they gave to us wasn't enough. And that's why we have to hold on tight. And the greatest thing that you can ever do for a loved one who has experienced their life and they are coming towards the end is to let them go freely and with love, to celebrate and appreciate each and every aspect of that life that they had. It was something I was able to do with my godmother towards the end. We knew her time was up. We knew that she was done on this earth. The disease that was ravaging her body had taken its toll, and she was ready to go home to Source to be welcomed by her sister and her mother and her father and her son, her husband, and other people that were there waiting for her. She was ready to let go. And the only thing that she asked of us was to know that she loved us. She adored us. She gave us everything in her power to make us be happy. She was the light of my life. I love everything about her. And yes, I miss her. I would love to be able to pick up the phone and talk to her. Thankfully, due to my connection with Source and Spirit, I can talk to her quite freely. I do miss her hugs and I miss the smell that she had, the sense of being and that person that I could sit and converse with. But her love was so encompassing for me that I don't feel that loss as deep as I would have if it happened earlier. But before she passed, I personally did a lot of work in order to come to terms with that. And for that, I am grateful because it is something that she taught me of how to cope and move on through love. Because it is a disservice for us to stop living just because they have. We have different trajectories of our lives and our soul's journey. We are always meant to move on. Grief in itself is strongest when we do lose our nearest and dearest to us. But grief is also an aspect that shows up in our life when we lose jobs, long-term partnerships, friendships, even parts of ourselves if we injure ourselves. And I've known people to go through grief when they've lost a limb. I've known through people to go through grief when they've had cancer and had to lose a body part or to change something of themselves. I know people that go through grief when they cut their hair. It is an emotion and an experience about loss and that emptiness or hollowness of being left alone. Whereas our heart is so big that it can feel love from many, many sources. And that source does not have to be here right in front of us in order for us to feel it. Because when you think about it, especially as adults, so many people get very down when they lose their parents because they feel that love as an aspect of self that is so absent. But for the most part, we don't see our parents every day. Sometimes you can only call them once a week or once a month or see them sporadically, but you always know they're there. And even though they have crossed over to the heavenly sphere, that energy and connection of being there is always connected and tethered to your soul. And the love they give you remains inside your heart, forever to be acknowledged, honored, and appreciated. They give everything of themselves that they can in order to make our life better. The other factor that comes into play around grief is the emotion and problems of regret, of things either not said or need to be unsaid, of healing not taking place, forgiveness not given, not being able to say sorry, or for those who have been through tragic or very instant death, the inability to say goodbye. This is a part that takes a lot to get over. And I don't dismiss in any way, shape, or form anyone's version of grief because everybody processes it differently. But in order to heal through grief, you first have to come back and ask yourself, did they love you? Did you love them? And was that love enough to satisfy everyone? One of the greatest songs that I love that really bring this connection about is When Tomorrow Never Comes. And the memory of the version I hear in my head is by Ronan Keating, but I don't think he is the first person that sung it. But when you listen to those lyrics about if tomorrow never comes, would you know how much I loved you? That is the greatest wish from our friends and loved ones in heaven, to know that the fact they're no longer here, do you still know how much they loved you? And when you are able to release that grief, that loss, that distance and disconnect, and remember that love, that purity of their being and the connection that you had, you then can feel them around you and you will notice the signs and symbols they send to you to let you know that they are always by your side. The ironic part of it all is we don't see them as often as we did unless we live with them 24/7 and they were in our face all the time when they were on earth. But when they pass to spirit, they're with us more than they've ever been. Simply because time is not a construct up there and they are around us and know more about us than we've ever been able to have. And they do show us that support as often and as much as they can, but your grief can get in the way of you feeling their essence, of knowing they're around and noticing the signs that they send to you. So when you are going through the heartache and the heartbreak of this loss, always sit for a moment and just ask, did they love you? And was that love enough? And remember that love with the peace that you know sits within you. And then in your imagination, what would they say to you through this moment? How would they help you deal with this moment if they could? And any lost conversations or unfinished business, you can have those conversations with them. And if you quieten your mind enough and tune into your essence, you will hear the answers. But it does take concerted effort to leave behind the low vibration. You cannot connect with them when you sit in grief. It is an extremely low vibrational frequency, and it does disconnect us from the connection of the universe. But when you raise your vibration again to happiness, peace, love, and joy, and just acceptance, that is when you can find and connect with their essence. Now, their voice is not going to be the same. You're not going to hear it like you're able to pick up a telephone and talk to them, but you will hear it through songs that they'll pass through messages, through conversations or snippets on the TV, through strangers coming up and saying a kind word or repeating a phrase that they used to say. A lot of people mistake all of this for coincidence and say, oh, that's just something that happened. But it's not something that just happens. It's orchestrated by them so they can connect with you and help you get through this grieving period. It is up to you how you understand grief and the perspective about it. One of the greatest things that you can do when you're overwhelmed with grief is to find someone to talk to, whether that's a counselor, a psychic, or an intuitive, or even a family member. And remember your loved one with all the joy and openness and the good, fond memories that you can have with them. And yes, it's okay to be angry at them and to go off and share or unburden yourself with the feelings that are locked inside you about them. It is one of the stages of grief that you will need to move through. And trust me, they forgive you instantaneously, even as you're saying it. There are no grudges to be held from the other side. They understand. And these emotions and feelings and problems that you hold inside must be released for the good of all. So grief is really just a loss or sadness about a feeling of emptiness. It is not having access to what you used to have access to. My greatest grief in life was when I miscarried my twins, and that loss of knowing I would never have the children that I was so excited about, so connected to, had loved so deeply already, literally tore my heart apart. But it was only a short while later that through my meditation and connection with my spirit guides and my source self, that I was able to fully understand the journey of that and the blessing that it was for both of us. They do grow up in the heavenly sphere. I'm blessed and privileged to be able to speak to them, as I said, and I do communicate with them. They come and tug on my legs like children used to. They come and whisper things in my ear when I go to sleep. I feel the presence around me at all times. And these are experiences that everyone can have when you open yourself up to them. And grief comes in many different forms. In the very beginning, I hated myself. I hated life for taking away the one thing that I really wanted. I was so angry and upset and hurt and felt so unworthy. And then I went through this whole period of blame of there must be something wrong with me for why am I not good enough to have children? Why am I not good enough to experience great love in life? Why do not I not have anybody? And these took a lot of deep soul searching on my behalf to find the answers for that. The funny part about it is underneath all of it, it was actually a true blessing on a soul level, and I'm able to understand that from that perspective, and it gives me peace in that. It is a gift of love, and it is a gift of pain that I accepted to experience in order to help other souls along their journey. And for that, it is something that I will come to terms with when I do cross over and know the full story of it. But my version of it is that even though they're not here, they still exist on, and the love that I have for them never goes away. But that love is so expansive that it can be given to other people and other beings like animals and other like people's children, other things in life, other experiences. And without that experience and without that shaping me into who I am today, I wouldn't have become this life coach that I have, and I wouldn't be sharing all of these things that I know with all of you. So as hard as that lesson was, and as hard as that part of my life was, the pain that I experienced, it also brings me great peace and joy to know that I was able to conquer that in order to help other people conquer it too. The grief has a great paradox. The only reason grief does exist is because love exists. And as I said, grief is the pure absence of that love. And you know how much you love someone, literally in many ways, by how much you grieve them. Because if you didn't have grief for any period of time, you didn't have the love or respect or the connection with that soul. Absence leaves a part of you that feels incomplete until you come to terms with the understanding that that love was special. It had a moment in time to bring you everything that you need to bring to be who you are. And who you are is the most important factor in all of this. When we love deeply, we form energetic connections with people, and those connections must continue on. The absence of grief and the lingering of grief in the body is when we do lose someone. And it sounds a bit facetious, and it's not meant to be in any way, shape, or form, but pets are the greatest experiences of what I'm about to talk about right now. Is we love our pets and we have them, and they're family members, they're babies, they're everything to us. But pets do only come into our lives for a short period of time. They have very short lifespans compared to humans. But their greatest gift to us is for us not to grieve them, but to then go and get another pet and to share that love with another soul so they can experience that connection too. And it's the same when we lose a loved one, especially a spouse. Our spouse never wants us to be alone forever, because that's disrespectful to the love that you shared. For if that love cannot continue on and find another for the time that you have left on earth, it means that your love was a bit unworthy of each other. It's not to say that they're not going to duel with this new lover when they get to heaven if the love was deep and it was someone that you value very deeply. And trust me, I've had people cross over that have come to tell me their previous husbands or wives are up there and they didn't actually want to see them. But the love did linger on and they sorted out. It doesn't mean that you love them any less when you decide to move on, especially if that spouse or partner dies at a very young age. They would not want you to waste all the love that's inside of you that your soul is capable of giving to the world by not moving on and forming better, stronger relationships with other people. The hardest part about grief is people don't actually sit down and ask themselves the right questions about it. If you are going through grief at this moment, just ask and consider, what are you actually grieving? What is the part that you miss the most about the person or pet that you feel the loss for, the partnership, the job, the social circle, the connections, the friendship? What is the essence of that is missing? And then when you turn that around, ask yourself, why was this person in my life? What was their purpose? Were they here to teach me, or was I here to teach them? Were they here for a season, a reason, or a lifetime? And how is my life different because of that connection? Because trust me, you would never have had that connection if it wasn't meant to have an impact on you. But sometimes people are not in our lives to have permanent impact. Literally, there is hardly any souls, and I say hardly any because I don't have all the exact numbers, but there is hardly any souls that the minute you're born that you stick and stay with and you continue all of your life forever. I don't know the full-on relationship between twins, triplets, quadruplets, and so forth, but eventually we all move apart and we all separate, and very rarely, and I say rarely because I do think I have heard of incidences where twins or people born on the same day have lived and died together. But very rarely does it so happen in that way. But even twins that are born on the same day, on the same moment, no two twins come into the world at the exact same minute, and very rarely, if ever, have they ever gone out of the world at the exact same minute. So there are no souls that we ever have in our life that are here for that full lifetime. Lifetime is an experience of essence of, is it for their lifetime? Is it for your lifetime? Because when you think about it, our parents give birth to us after they've already been on earth for at least, I don't even want to say an age, for a fair few years before they give birth to us. And some can unfortunately live after us, but many of them die before us. So how much of that lifetime are we here for? There is no true connection in life that is there for all of everyone's lifetime. And I say this even when it comes to the twin bond and twin flames and twin souls and everything, because twins don't come in together and they don't exit together. There are time differences for that. So every single soul that connects with us does have a purpose or a reason. What sort of relationship is that? How do you process through that? How do you understand your soul's connection with them? And how do you love and know that your love is enough to sustain them through grief? And to know that the love you give is enough to sustain them through the rest of their life. Because that is the great thing about love, and why it isn't so important, is the love that we give each other. And the one thing that you need to focus on in this world is to give enough love that it does sustain the people left behind after your death. Because otherwise, we become insignificant. Because the only true memories of the way we live on beyond this earth plane is through the memories and the connection and the love of other people. So instead of focusing on grief and the loss, start focusing on the living and the love that you have now, and ensuring that you have enough of it and give enough of it and do all of you can with it whilst you are living. The saddest thing that breaks my heart in life is people get old, they get sick, they become ill and downtrodden. Nobody ever really goes to visit them or cares about them. But all of a sudden they die, and there are thousands of people at a funeral that have not seen them for more than 20 or 30 years. And that's sad. That is not the connection that you want in life. In order to avoid grief and to stop wallowing and have regrets about someone moving on to the afterlife, live, experience life with them, love them freely, but connect with them. Be present in their life. Be mindful of your connection and enjoy every moment. Experience everything of it that you can. That is the way to avoid the grief cycle and to stop the fear and the emptiness from happening, is to be present and mindful of the relationship that you have with that person whilst they are alive. Grief takes a long time to get over when you are filled with regret or heartache or heartbreak because you didn't give enough of yourself when they were here. And usually it's about the things not done, not the things that you have done. And once someone is gone, it's harder to fix. It can be done, but a lot of people can't get through that. So take the time that you have now to surround yourself with your loved ones, to be present in their life, to show up for them whilst they are here. Don't sit back and let them move on to the other worlds and complain that you didn't get enough time or you didn't have enough of this and you miss them so much when you aren't fully present in their life in the moment. Because that's where grief will come back to bite you the most. And that is where you find the unpredictable waves of grief that happen. After time, most people do move on. And you go through long periods where you're getting through life and having it become easier and you're starting to enjoy things. And then all of a sudden you'll be hit with this wave of loss, of this emptiness, of despair. And it's usually because you're regretting not utilizing the time that you had with them while they were here. So do yourself a favor. Look at the loved ones in your life and ask yourself, how important are they to you? Do you love them enough? Do you spend enough time with them? Is the love that you're giving them and is the love they are giving you enough to sustain you if they were not going to be here tomorrow? Because we never know how long we do have on earth, and life is short in comparison to eternity. And this existence and connection that you have with them is highly important. So make the most of it. Don't allow yourself to lose them and then ponder and complain and moan that you didn't get what you needed. Because it's the lack of what is there that creates all the emotions associated with grief. There's sadness, which is all about the void of what's missing. Guilt from wondering, could you have done things differently? Could you have done it better? Anger at the universe for taking them away, for not being enough. Anger at yourself, anger at them. There's numbness that comes through. The pain's so great that you shut down and you can't do anything. You lose yourself in that essence. And then the other thing that grief does is trigger that deep spiritual awakening, the essence of becoming more present in life, of becoming more available. Grief also reminds you never ever to forget. It comes up at times just to remind you that they did exist. Because that is part of the depth of sadness that we struggle through, is people start to feel guilty because, oh my God, I went a whole day and I didn't think of my loved one who passed today. Or their memory wasn't top of mind and I didn't put myself on hold for them. That is never what they want you to do. You are meant to live on, you are meant to keep moving, and you are meant to create the life that you need. It doesn't mean that you forgetting them and not talking about them means the love is any less. It just means that you have to keep living and they will always be there in the memory of who and what you are. Never feel guilty about moving on after a loved one has passed, because the greatest disservice you can do to them is to stay stuck where you are. They never want that for us. It hurts their hearts. It causes them grief. And that's not what the goal of this experience of life is about. So when you feel fear about someone being gone, or knowing that that loss is no longer as strong as it was, or that you're letting go of your grief, just remind yourself that your grief is proof of your love and of their love. But love is the strongest emotion of all. And love gives us permission to live. It gives us everything we need to move forward and to make something of life and become everything we need to be. They do not want you to sit in it for long periods of time, although there is no time sequence for grief. Never try and push someone out of grief because you're working on a different timeline they are. But do encourage them to think of the fondness of the memories that they have, the love, the joyous times, and remind them all about who they are, and honor the memory of the loved one. When grief becomes so hard to move on, one of the best ways to move through it is to channel that grief into doing something that they love to make their memory worthwhile. That can mean getting in touch and connecting with people who are still here, reaching out to all of those people that came and supported you during that time, reconnecting with the loved ones that are present and prominent in your life at the moment, and find ways to express that love. And especially if you do lose a pet, I'm not saying the day after that your pet dies to go and get another one, but within a short amount of time, do yourself a favor and honor the pet and the essence that they gave you and all of their love and energy that they gave while they were here on earth, and get another one, because their greatest fear is that the loss of them stops you from having another pet, because that means that they caused you more pain than love. And when you can move on with another pet and give that pet the same love and allow them to feel the hole in your heart, they will never replace it. They will never stop you missing that person. And it's not about replacing them with an exact carbon copy, because that's impossible. It is about honoring the connection that you have to move it forward and to let your heart that continues to love be shared with those who need it the most. Some things that people don't realize is that it is not a betrayal of someone to move on after they've gone. It is actually their greatest wish. From the other side, the one thing I know through all the readings that I've done over time is they come to tell their loved ones to move on, to not hold themselves back, and to live and love freely. Because we don't want to waste any of this precious time on earth that we have. It is very short for everyone. It is not meant to be sitting in sadness and letting time pass us by. It is meant for living and doing everything that we can to create a life worthwhile of us. The fact that your loved one loved you so much that you feel that grief just tells you that there's enough of you to love for you to love other people the same way. Love is what keeps us going around. So love everyone in your life. Heal your broken relationships. Don't leave it till it's too late. Pay attention to what's going on right in front of you and be present. Okay? Grief's not something to get over. It is something you walk to with honor, and it allows you to shape yourself into a more loving, more connected, more compassionate human being. All our loved ones who have passed before us have ever wanted is to help us be better tomorrow than we are today. They hope that what they gave us, how they interacted with us, has made us a better person. And even though we feel their loss and we feel the emptiness of not being able to see and hold them, the love and the connection and the friendship and their story that they gave us, the interaction of our souls, is the important factor to remember. So honor your grief. Talk to your loved ones in spirit. They are always around and always listening. They want to hear from you. If you can't connect with them for yourself or notice the signs around you, reach out to a psychical medium and have them help you build that connection. But let go of any regrets, any pain, any hurt, and allow grief to pass through you. It is not meant to sit within you and stay and linger. It is meant to pass through you. There are different stages of grief, and it never goes away. It is not something to be ever forgotten, because our loved ones are never meant to be forgotten. But they are meant to be remembered with love, joy, and happiness rather than sadness, fear, and tears. The one thing I know from communing with spirit as often as I have through doing the readings and connections and healings that I have over the years is that their simple message always is do not cry for me. Do not stay stuck in your life. Do not stop living because I'm no longer here. But remember me with joy. Remember the smile on my face. Remember all the things I did and gave to you. And most of all, laugh with me. Honor me. Sing to me. Scream at me. However you interacted with them, keep that essence the same. But remember them with joy, hope, and passion. For they are everything in our life, and they gave everything that they had while they could, and they were here. Grief is something that falls through our life at many, many different times. And one of the hardest things that we do have to get over is sometimes you'll lose a loved one and you'll just get through that cycle of grief. And unfortunately, another loved one will cross, and then you start it all over again. But through each moment and cycle that you go through, you learn bigger lessons of how to deal with it. And always remember, when loved ones go back to spirit, they are met and celebrated much like birth is here on earth. So they rejoice the ending of their life. They rejoice all the things that they did because they reviewed the impact that they have. And the grief and the feelings that you have for them is the essence of how much they showed up in this world. And the more people that feel that and connect that, the more impact that they have. But they don't want you to grieve or stay grieving forever. They want you to love them, remember them with fondness, laugh about them, celebrate their anniversaries and talk to them, and know that they are always nearby. I hope this episode has helped you. Tune in to the next one. Thanks for listening to the Spiritual Awakening with Shaz podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below so you don't miss an episode. You can also follow us on Facebook with the links below. Until next time, trust your intuition and let your spirit soar.